Hello, young man.
Hi. You know how the doctor has those long lines that they always have to say?
Long lines, yeah.
Yes. Was it easy for you to memorize them, or is it very hard?
I should say it was very hard, shouldn't I? So you're impressed by my ability to do so. Back in those days, we used to rehearse properly, which means that we spent a week practicing with each other. So when we got into the studio, we were pretty well on top of it. Nowadays, they film on a daily basis, and you just have to go home and learn it. That would be difficult. But I was quite lucky at the time. It went in quite easily. Nicola Bryant was even better. She knew the lines long before I ever did, and she used to prompt me if I got mine wrong as well. But you're right, learning the lines is the difficult job. If you're an actor, hopefully you can act. But remembering those lines, I know some really good actors who have struggled because of not being able to learn lines.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And also, we're going to ask that you limit it to yourselves to one question. By the way.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So when you were playing the doctor, did you guys have anything in common, like personality-wise?
What, me and the doctor?
Yeah.
It's very hard to answer that because other people are the best ones to judge that. I like to think I was playing a part, but it was a part that was based partly on me. Not that I was arrogant and overbearing and wore ridiculous clothing, but I certainly have a sense of fun, which the Sixth Doctor did. I certainly care about things like the Doctor did, but I think as a person, I'm a little more patient than the Doctor was. Well, I hope so. Well, I'm not now, but I was then. 30 years ago, I was quite patient. Now I'm totally impatient.
You're not that bad.
Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to
Hi.
say, sir, you will always be the doctor. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. You're a wise girl. Pay attention to her. She speaks with unforked tongue.
My question is, with Peter Capaldi's most recent season with the Mistress and the Master and that, a lot of the fans were kind of contemplating whether the Mistress was going to kind of have more of a take on the Ronnie, oh, I can't speak, I'm sorry. The Ronnie, I'm sorry. And I was just wondering if you thought the same as us as the fans, that there was a potential for that to be, and if so, did you find that interesting?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh.
In fact, I only discovered a couple of days ago that there was a female master. I seem to have missed out on that. I've only seen the first couple of episodes of Peter's tenure as the Doctor, which I liked very much, because he was a Doctor who is grumpy, tick, who doesn't put up with nonsense, tick, who gets very impatient with his companion, tick, and who is his own person, tick. Now, where have we seen all those qualities before?
Totally agree.
Every 6 Doctors, they get it right.
Yeah.
No recording or anything, I swear, but could you just tell my friend Evan he needs to propose to Stacy already?
To tell Evan...
He's obsessed with you as much as I am, and you can't be here, but could you just tell him he needs to propose to Stacy?
To Stacy?
Yes.
Evan!
Maybe if he hears it from you, it'll, you know.
Yeah. Evan proposed to Stacy.
Thank you.
And Stacy, say no. Stacy, say what you like. I think Stacy's probably her own girl. Hello, young man.
Hello. I wanted to know what it was like to continue your role as a doctor through the Big Finish audiobooks.
I love doing Big Finish because Big Finish enabled my Doctor to continue the journey that was rudely interrupted by the arrival of that strange little Scottish chap.
Hear, hear.
Because, do you know, actually some people may not have noticed, but I did not regenerate. Have you noticed that?
Oh, we noticed.
Yeah, we definitely noticed
We definitely
that.
noticed.
We definitely.
So, quite simply, Sylvester McCoy is an imposter.
Yeah. You're still the
And
doctor.
I am still the Doctor. I wasn't there for the regeneration, so you can't regenerate on your own. So he is the beginning of a new line of doctors. So I was still going. I'm number 6, who is still the doctor 30 years later. So I'm the longest serving doctor. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Cheers to that.
Will you march behind me?
Yeah.
Let us topple the towers of Gallifrey. Woo! Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Baker.
Good afternoon.
Okay, let's keep going on the, I want to keep going on the big finish
Oh yeah, I
track.
never finished that, sorry. Before you ask your question, let me say about Big Finish that I am so grateful to Big Finish because there was an arc for my character, which we started and it was like that. And Big Finish has enabled it to do that and take off. Because it struck me that interesting characters are ones you find out more about the more you know them. The example I always give is Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. You read Pride and Prejudice, you think Darcy is awful, until right at the end when you realize he's the only decent person in the book. He is the one who has the highest morals, cares the most, does the most for others. But he felt no need to be complimented for that, and he kept quiet about it. Now that's what I like. And I thought my doctor be interesting to challenge the audience, and John Nathan Turner agreed with me, to say, is he really? Is that the doctor? Surely not, he can't be like that. And then gradually find out that under all that, there is the doctor. And Big Finish has enabled me to do that. And I am delighted to say that the listeners who listen regularly to Big Finish have said, at last we know who the 6th Doctor is, because the long-term plan has been followed. And through different companions, which I've had with Evelyn Smythe in particular, dear Maggie Stables.
Yeah, Maggie Stables was
who
great.
sadly died this year, who was a lovely, lovely lady and a superb companion for my doctor. And the stories have been so good. Every single story I do for Big Finish is as good, if not better, than some of the ones that I had on television. So it amazes me they continue to be able to turn out new and inventive scripts, but they do. And I think now, well, certainly last year, I'd done more Doctor Who stories than any other Doctor. But now Tom is doing them as well, the Big Finish. I suspect he'll overtake me again. But I have loved doing Big Finish. I did one last month. I'm doing another one next month. Any of you who haven't yet experienced the joys of 2-hour audio drama, it's 4 episodes, like in the old days. 4 episodes of a Doctor Who story, fully cast, and the sound effects and sound build on their DVDs is phenomenal. I really do recommend them. And if you like, you can listen to the other Doctors as well.
Yeah.
But your question.
Yeah, my question is, well, first of all, one of the things I'm grateful with Big Finish, in addition to giving you an arc, is they gave you a more, how shall we say, subdued version of the coat in blue. Now, if the powers that be that run Doctor Who now were to wise up and have you guest star as 6, would you ask to be able to wear the blue coat so we can see it on television?
What I would do is ask if I could wear the coat that I originally asked for in 1983. They said to me, what would you like? And what I described is what Christopher Eccleston got all those years later. It struck me that the Doctor would probably find it advantageous occasionally to disappear into the background. Doing what the Doctor does means that he would benefit from not being caught, arrested, shot at. So they listened to me, they nodded sagely, and they turned up with what you saw on that screen, which has got Target written all over it. In fact, it should have a label saying, "Shoot me, please," on it. I had the advantage of being on the inside, looking out. I didn't have to look at it. You all did. I apologize for that. But it was the 1980s. It was the age of glam rock. And if you see what some of the rock stars were wearing in the 80s, you'll see the kind of environment in which that costume was born. So if I were to appear as the Doctor again, and frankly it's not terribly likely, I would certainly, if offered, take the blue costume, but I would prefer a black one. Black is very good when you reach a certain age and size, you know.
From your mouth to Moffat's ears.
I don't think Mr. Moffat's ears are terribly interested in what I'm doing.
Hello, Mr. Baker.
Hello.
I'm here to ask you what you just asked to the guy before me, about how your trending thing went on. As you discussed already, is you wanted a black, kind of like what I'm wearing. Actually, I'm dressed as the Ninth Doctor right now. I'm just here to ask you, what was your reaction when they came up with the suit that you came up with on TV?
Same as yours. What? No, I've always believed that somebody else, let costume designers design costumes, let actors act, let directors direct, let everyone do their job. And it was certainly different. It wouldn't have been my choice, but I think if you let actors dominate too much, then you're not letting other people do their jobs. So John Nathan Turner wanted the Doctor to appear to be totally tasteless. So he was.
And another thing I want to say is that I see a lot of people saying that you're not really one of the most famous doctors
Do
of
you?
all.
Do you hear people saying that? Name one.
Oh dear.
I'm not one of the most famous doctors.
But
I can't answer that.
Oh yeah, but I still think that you're one of my favorites because you're one of the most unique, not just in the clothes, but in your spirit. You are one of the most unique doctors I've ever seen.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Hi, little guy.
I wanted to say if K9 is going to come back.
K9 didn't figure in my time as the Doctor, so I wouldn't know about K9. I understand he was in the Sarah Jane Chronicles. But I think what happens is that the program has moved on. So the things that would come back now would be things like the Angels and all the things from the new era.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, little TARDIS.
So I was wondering, out of all the Doctor Who episodes you've seen, which enemy is your favorite?
Out of all the ones I've seen, I like the Slitheen. It's the flatulence. I just love it. I love monsters that go. It's just such a great idea. It's so kind of wacky. I'm not sure about the Angels, because they're so easy to deal with, aren't they? Yeah, they're scary, but I mean those young doctors, they don't know how to deal with them. Look at my face, right? You're an angel. Just switch eyes, they can't get you.
We don't have to be scared of statues anymore, guys.
As I said, every 6 doctors, they get it right.
Hello.
But I tell you the one I did like, and that's the silence. The silence is a really scary idea. Something that the moment you're not with them, you forget you've seen them. It's a bit like my family, really. The moment I'm not with them, maybe I'm their silence. When I come back home tomorrow, I'm sure one of my daughters will say, "Oh, I didn't notice you'd gone."
On the Doctor Who set, what was your favorite thing doing? Like,
say it again.
Like, when you're on the set of Doctor Who, what was your favorite thing to do on the set?
First thing to do?
Like, what was your favorite thing to do?
Oh, favorite. The first thing to do is go and make a friend of the cameraman, because he's the guy who can make you look good or make you look bad. Always befriend the cameraman. What's my favorite thing to do? I guess just playing the Doctor, really. I mean, I was privileged. I am one of 12 people who've had arguably the best job on television. Who's that there? Is that... He was in my first episode. Come here. Where are you going?
Hello, Mr. Baker. I'd like to ask you a question, please.
Oh dear.
Who was your favourite space policeman that you ever worked with?
Oh, my favourite. Ladies, come here so they can see you. Come here.
You want me to bring him a chair?
My very first episode. My very first episode.
My favourite Doctor.
My first episode of Doctor Who. And who did I get into trouble?
Me.
Twin Dilemma.
Hugo Lang.
I couldn't remember the name of the character.
Hugo Lang.
Captain Hugo Lang, yes.
It was because of you I got the Pirates movies, apparently, so thank you very much.
Really?
No.
Why didn't I get it?
I don't know.
And you bit Nicola Bryant's bottom, didn't you?
I did. He bit Nicola Bryant's bottom and we all saw it.
Yeah.
I did it first, he did it second, and he got the slap.
It's working?
I love this guy. Is he great?
Love him too.
We brought him a chair.
We brought you a chair if you'd like.
Stop by his table and get an autograph. Because nobody else has. He didn't hear me.
It's nice to meet you, but what out of all the monsters you ever faced, what was the most terrifying?
Michael Grade.
Yeah.
With Mary Whitehouse right behind him.
Yeah, he was the guy who cancelled the show. Terrifying. Do you know, because when you work with them on set, they're not so much terrifying as annoying. Because all those poor people who are stuck inside those suits, they can't see, they can't hear, they can't move. So you know darn well that every single scene is going to take hours to shoot as the guy inside the Cyberman falls over because he can't see through the mask. So in those terms, they're not terrifying at all. But I will tell you a story. I'd spent 2 weeks doing my story with the Daleks, and the same story applies. The guys inside those can't see very well, and as they trundle about, if they hit something, even like a pebble, catches one of the wheels, the whole thing falls over. So you have to be very patient and very slow running away from a Dalek too, because they can't go very fast. And so you develop a healthy contempt for them. So we'd finished that story, and I'd gone upstairs to the bar to have a lemonade after the recording. And when I came back down, I took a shortcut across the studio floor to my dressing room. And they'd taken all the set away, and all that was left in very dim studio lights, the emergency lights they have on, so you can just see, as you walk from one side to the other, of a big empty studio, about the size of this hall. All I could see in the middle was one Dalek, sitting there. And as I walked past, the eye stalk started moving. Now, everybody had gone home. I was on my own in a dark space with a real Dalek, or so I thought for a brief second. All it was that the guy who'd been working it had noticed it was squeaking. So he got in there with a spray of oil, WD-40, to loosen it up so on the next day it would work better. But for a moment I didn't know that, and for a moment I knew why the Daleks were scary.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello. Oh. Hello.
Hello.
What is your favorite Doctor Who quote?
Change, my dear, and not a moment too soon.
Oh.
Followed by, you were expecting someone else? And I am the Doctor, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It was downhill from then on. Excuse me while I have a drink. Ask your question.
Hi. My girlfriend, she couldn't be here right now because she had a family emergency, and I was wondering if you could just say a quick message to her so I can give it to her. She really loves you. You're like her favorite.
What's her name?
Liberty.
Liberty?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Liberty? Liberty, you didn't have the liberty to stay and see me. I'm sorry about that. I hope whatever it was that took you away is resolved happily, and I'm sorry to miss you. You've got a very good friend, even though she's dressed like a cat.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Baker.
Good afternoon, well-dressed man.
Thank you. I was curious to know what your idea was. I know that Trial of a Time Lord was what became of season 23, but before that, I heard that there were already scripts made for episodes like The Ultimate Evil, The Nightmare Fair, Yellow Fever, and How to Cure It. Did you agree with going in the direction of Trial of a Time Lord, or would you have liked to explore that one which would have returned some villains like the Autons, the Ronnie, the Celestial Toymaker?
I was a little bit dubious about the whole concept of Trial of a Time Lord. Not the stories within it, but the framework of the trial. Excuse me. Because the program was on trial. So it seemed to me a little unwise to force that upon people by reminding them that the program was on trial. But, you know, I was aware that the following series contained Nightmare Fair and Terror of the Autons and the Yellow Peril and How to Avoid It and all those, and was very sad when they were cancelled. I think it's too easy sometimes to say, oh, can't we have so-and-so back or so-and-so back? If you did that, you'd never get the new exciting things that come along. You'd never get stories like my personal favourite stories ever in Doctor Who are The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, the two stories of Chris Eccleston's.
Yeah.
If only for one line, the one line that Christopher Eccleston had at the end, which is, everybody lives. And if Doctor Who is about anything, it's about that. Everybody lives. What a great thing to care about and to say. There's no point in second guessing what would have happened if, and that. I'd love it if they had made the season that was cancelled, but they have been made on audio.
Yeah.
You can get them on Big Finish. We have made the Nightmare Fair. We have made the Space Whale. We have made, I can't remember the...
Mission to Magnus.
Mission to Magnus.
Yeah.
All the stories that were cancelled have been made. And they were made 25 years later, but on audio, I look exactly the same.
Thank you, sir.
Hi.
Hello.
Since you and Peter Capaldi are unique in that you both were on the show prior to actually becoming the Doctor,
Sure.
I was wondering if you had any pet theories on the Doctor's choice in faces and Regeneration, given that context.
Every 6 times they get it right. That's my theory, and it sticks.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Colin.
Hello.
Since you and Tom Baker both have the same last name, and you're both doctors, did anybody think that somehow you guys were related?
I get asked the question all the time. Given the fact that the name Baker it derives from the profession of people 500 years ago in a country which now has probably 50,000 people called Baker, the likelihood of us being related was probably very small. His family come from Liverpool, mine from Norfolk, which is 200 miles apart. So I suspect, I mean, if you go back to Adam, we're related. But you'd have to go back that far. And people do ask the question. It's, you know, it's, if we were called Bagshaw Smythe, it might be a more realistic possibility, because there are fewer Bagshaw Smythes. But Baker is a very common name. And in fact, Peter Davison's real name is Peter Moffat.
Yeah.
And Peter Moffat directed Twin Dilemma. And they're not related.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, I was wondering if you've ever played in a role similar to or had as much fun as when you were playing the Doctor.
Well, I kind of enjoy every job I do. I don't think there's another role I've done that's similar to the Doctor.
There's one. You played the Stranger.
Yeah, I don't really count
that.
that.
Kind of...
I don't count that.
You don't count that?
Because the guy who filmed The Stranger ripped us off, so...
Mr. Baggs? Mr. Baggs, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Baggs did a flanker on us. Yeah, he intended that to be like the Doctor, but it was only on, you know, video. It wasn't It wasn't that well done, to be honest.
But I mean, you got to have Nicola Bryant. She played Miss Brown.
She did indeed, yes.
Just completely ripping Doctor Who off right there.
Yeah.
Pippa Gilliam Brown.
But that was a long time ago. Hello.
Hi. I was wondering why you think Doctor Who is still so popular even after 50 years.
Because it's good.
Cheers.
It's one of the best stories, the story of the guy who comes into town, solves all your problems, and then goes away again. Who was that masked stranger? And Doctor Who, like Star Trek in this country, was the trailblazer. In the UK, it was Doctor Who. And suddenly, it was okay to have an imagination. It was okay to dream about traveling through time and space. And families loved watching it in the same way that Star Trek was here. You may have noticed, have you seen this t-shirt? Star Trek Continues.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
Yes.
Star Trek Continues is it's slightly more than a fan-made show, because all the people doing it are pros. There's a guy called Vic Mignogna, who is a voiceover artist of some great success. Yeah, he's done a lot of good stuff. And I sat next to him at a convention somewhere, and we got on really well. And he told me about Star Trek Continues, which is his baby. He plays Captain Kirk superbly. And he's built a set which is to the millimeter the same as the Enterprise you see in the first series of Star Trek.
Including the two toilets?
And he's, sorry?
Including the two toilets on either side?
The toilet?
Yeah, there's toilets on either side of the Enterprise.
On the bridge of the Enterprise.
If you say so. Yeah. I didn't look for that, but
okay.
Yeah. But he's built a brilliant set up north of Jacksonville. He's got Scotty's son playing Scotty.
Yeah.
He's got some great actors playing Spock and Sulu, and they've done 3 stories so far, which are on the web.
Yeah.
You can Star Trek Continues. Go and have a look, because you'll be amazed. And I'm in the 4th one. So it's the first ever ish. I'm not playing Doctor Who. I'm playing a character, but it's the first ever Doctor Who Star Trek crossover, which is exciting.
Very much. Very exciting, actually.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
When you went on set and you were the doctor, when you went on, did you ever know where you were going with your companion or wherever you were going to show up?
Well, I knew, because I'd read the script.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mean, did the doctor know?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yes. But more often not, to be honest, no. The doctor sometimes pressed buttons and hoped. But usually I knew, because they told me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Given the different disposition between Mel and Perry, how was it working with Bonnie Langford compared to Nicola Bryant?
Well, it was kind of different, but the same. I knew Bonnie already, because I'd worked with Bonnie in the theatre some 10 years before she came to Doctor Who. So I knew Bonnie. I knew she was a faultless performer, really hard-working, dedicated, and good actress. So even though I was really sad, because Nicola started with me and we'd got very close, and I think all doctors are sad when companions go. Well, I think most doctors are. And I was sad when Nicola went in such a strange way, really, turning into a slug, or married to the Lord of Crontep, whichever version you believe. And there's a very good version on Big Finish, the true version of what happened to Perry. So get that story, it's excellent.
The last 3 ones that just came out.
Yeah.
Widow's Assassin, the Ronnie Elite, and Masters of Earth.
Yeah,
was
and the
three-parter.
Piscom Paradox.
Oh, right.
Which is very good. So do listen to them. But yeah, of course I was sad. But then Bonnie came in. We only had 1 story, really. But I enjoyed working with her enormously. And I'm doing a Big Finish with her week after next. Really? So I'll be seeing her again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, fella.
Hi. What's the best and funniest thing you've ever done on the show?
The best thing I've ever done? Well, that's for others to say. It's very hard to be subjectively aware of the work you're doing. So I'll let others say what was best or worst. Most enjoyable, you see, every minute you're enjoying it. So it's a bit like saying, I've got 4 daughters. Which is your favorite daughter? Impossible question, because you love them all. And I loved every minute of being the Doctor. It was, funny enough, obviously it's one of the biggest parts I've ever played. And with being the lead in something, gives you freedom. When you're a supportive actor, you have to be aware that it's somebody else's show and, you know, you don't want to tread on their toes or get in the way. But when you're the show, it's very releasing. I had the best 3 years of my professional life. And working for John Nathan Turner, who was the producer, who you saw on the screen just now, who had confidence in me. He asked me to play the part. Didn't have to audition for it. I didn't have to do a screen test. He asked me to play it. And that is very, very liberating. So I was given that job, a job which every actor, whether they'll admit it or not in Britain, would have killed to get. And it was given to me, and I grabbed it with both hands and loved it all.
Thank you.
Well, if you think about it, your audition was playing Maxwell in Arc of Infinity.
Except I didn't know that.
Except you didn't know that, right.
If I'd known it was an audition, I'd have been nervous. Instead, I just played Maxwell and got into trouble for it.
Yeah.
Because I played a character in a Peter Davison story called Maxwell. And Maxwell was a guard who had to shoot Peter. It wasn't a major character. It was a supporting character. And I am a great believer that none of you are bit parts in anybody else's life. You are the leading actor in your life. Each one of you sitting there has got people around you, and you're looking at me, but you're the person. You're with yourself all the time. You know you. And Maxwell wasn't overawed by the Doctor, so I gave him life, if you like. Yeah. And we did a run-through for the producer, and John Nathan Turner came up to me afterwards and said, "Are you under the impression that this program is called Maxwell the Guard?" I said, "How do you mean?" He said, "Well, you're kind of behaving as if it's about you." I said, "Isn't it?" He said, "No, it's called Doctor Who." I said, "All right, I shall be quieter," I said. And he said, "Thank you." And we laughed about it. And we became friends because of it. Because I think directors and producers like people who offer something, you know, because if someone's too big or doing too much, you can get them to tone it down. If they're doing nothing at all, it's very hard to build them up. So clearly because I registered my total disdain for this Doctor character, and poor old Peter, perhaps I had a bit too much of the screen, so I gave some of it back to him.
Well, it's hard to put a leading man in a supporting role sometimes. They just don't, fit.
Scarf person.
Hello, Mr. Baker. Out of all the stories that you did with other doctors, which one is your favorite?
Well, I only did the one on television, which was...
And the Big Finish.
2 Doctors. Oh, Big Finish as well. I think that the problem with Big Finish is you don't always do it with them. It's very hard to get us all in the studio at the same time. So very often doing them, you might do it with one Doctor, but not all of them. So for me, it was 2 Doctors working with Patrick Troughton. Because for me, Patrick Troughton did the hard job. Patrick Troughton was the one who did the first Regeneration. And if that hadn't worked as magnificently as it did, we'd all be sitting here wondering why the stage was empty. and what's that blue box in the corner? Because I've never seen it before. Because after 3 years, Doctor Who would have died as a TV program if they hadn't found the best actor in Britain at the time, Patrick Troughton, to take over the part. And if he hadn't done it so superbly, because he was quite different to Bill Hartnell, and he was this kind of engaging, pixie-like character who took the part in a whole new direction, and made Regeneration something which people got excited about rather than depressed about. So we owe a lot to him. So the idea of doing a story myself with Pat Troughton was very, very appealing, and I was quite kind of not nervous, but anxious for his approval, I guess. And we instantly got on well. I had known him before because his son David was a close friend of mine, and I was his best man when he got married, for instance. So I had met Patrick, but never worked with him. And to work with him on that was a great honor because he was just a great actor. I loved him.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to gather together for a big group selfie.
Yeah.
Okay, young man.
Hello. I wanted to know what your opinion was on all of the newer and younger actors who play the Doctor.
The newer and younger ones, well, first of all, it is brilliant that Russell T Davies had the tenacity and the strength and the talent to bring it back in the way he did, because suddenly, after a decade in the wilderness, when some of us thought Doctor Who was gradually sliding into oblivion, along came this man who was very much in the image of John Nathan Turner. He was a showman. Yeah. And he had a huge track record of doing brilliant stuff on television. And he came up with New Who. And we were all agog and waited, and he cast Christopher Eccleston, who was quite an unusual idea, because Christopher Eccleston had done a lot of very straight drama. He wasn't one who did the kind of genre that Doctor Who would be in. He'd done a lot of meaningful films and television, and he would not have been an obvious idea to play Doctor Who, and he was magnificent, of course. And I've just said that the Doctor dances and the Empty Child were just the best Doctor Who's ever for me. Those earlier ones were stunning. And Russell was a brilliant producer, and of course the present producer was writing. He wrote the story I liked the best. Stephen Moffat wrote the Doctor Dances 2 stories. And I was really excited when it came back. And every Doctor who's ever played the Doctor, I can't comment on myself, but I think to have been in the company of all of them is a great honor. To be one of that 12 is fantastic. And I joked at a convention last year about children playing the Doctor as a way of welcoming Peter Capaldi as the first grown-up in years playing the part. And some people took me seriously, so I certainly want to put that to bed, that I think they've all been great. And in England, certainly, I don't know about over here, but certainly David Tennant got more girls. That's the noise you hear. David Tennant got more girls watching Doctor Who than we've ever had before. I wonder why. And he's gone on to do great things. I thought Matt Smith was fantastic. Matt Smith reminded me of Patrick Troughton, because he had that kind of rather random, strange, jolly quality. And I've only seen 2 of Peter Capaldi's, but I think he's already fantastic, because he's grumpy and mean like me.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have time for one more quick question?
Come on, then.
One quick question.
Yeah, last question.
Last question.
Okay. First of all, Mr. Baker, thank you so much for coming to Miami.
My pleasure.
We all appreciate that. Obviously, I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm wearing a Star Trek T-shirt. I was wondering.
So am I.
Yeah, I was wondering, what was it like for you working from a professional filming to something like a fan film independent production? What was it like for you, the whole experience?
Well, doing the Star Trek this week was like doing a professional one, because all the guys doing it were professionals who happened to give up their time to do some homage to the old Star Treks. And therefore it's a professional job, even though I gave my services freely, because they don't have a budget. Nonetheless, everyone who was doing it was professional.
Thank you so much for that.
The gift of Colin Baker, that's incredible.
Well, shish.
Well, your acting abilities are intense.
Well, no, if you'd been there, you wouldn't have said so, because I'd looked at the wrong script. So I arrived on set not knowing the lines properly. But that's another problem.
Thank you so much.
But do watch out for it. The fourth Star Trek continues when it comes out.